If you want a LinkedIn profile that builds credibility, attracts opportunity, and makes a great first impression, it starts with your headshot. In today's digital world, a LinkedIn headshot is not just a photo, it's your personal brand. And whether you're job hunting, networking, or positioning yourself as an industry leader, your headshot can make all the difference. In this video, I'm breaking down 8 examples of exceptional headshots, what makes them work, and how you can achieve the same polished look whether you use a professional or you take your photo yourself at home. Stay tuned until the end so you can hear my tips for nailing a strong headshot, plus a simple checklist to make sure that yours stands out for all the right reasons. Before we dive into these examples, let's talk about what separates a good headshot from a great one. At the mid to executive level, your photo needs to convey 3 things: professionalism, approachability, and confidence. Here are the 5 things I want you to focus on. Lighting. Natural, even lighting is key. You don't want any sort of harsh shadows or washed out features. If you are side lit or backlit, that tends to cast a shadow and it can make it unclear to be able to see your face fully. Your background, it needs to be simple and distraction-free. Think about using solid colors or a soft blur. Attire, dress for the role that you want. Well-fitting, professional, and industry appropriate. Your expression, a warm, genuine smile or composed, confident look. Quality, high resolution and sharp focus. No pixelation or filters. Now, if you want to take this photo by yourself at home, here's some pro-level tips. Use your phone's portrait mode. It will blur out the background and make you the focal point of the photo. Try taking the photo near a window, but not in direct sunlight. Also, avoid any sort of harsh artificial lighting. When you're positioning your camera, position it at eye level. You don't want any sort of weird or strange angles. Don't forget to take multiple shots and play around with your expression. Try a big smile, then try something a little more serious and composed. Of course, if you are investing in your personal brand, a professional photographer is worth it. But these tips will get you 90% of the way there. Now, let's look at 8 examples of LinkedIn headshots that really nail these principles. Now, let's look at some examples. Meet Patrick. Patrick is a management consultant, and now we can analyze his photo. So his photo is definitely giving clean cut. He's wearing a suit, but not a tie, so it tells me, okay, I'm professional, but not too serious. His face is very clear. We can see it clearly. He does have a nice background that fits the context, so it looks like he's in an office setting. What I like about it, though, is the background is blurred, so it's not too distracting. There are other people in the background, but it doesn't draw your attention because Patrick is in frame and he is focused while the background is blurred. In addition, he has a great smile. It's very kind, open, and it draws you in. Meet Pilar. She's a marketing director. She has professional attire that definitely aligns with what I would expect of a marketing director. She's also in a professional power pose, so having her arms crossed. And the arms crossed here does not come off as closed. Sometimes it can. That body language of crossing your arms creates a barrier between you and other people. But in this specific instance, especially because it is a professional headshot, I don't feel as though there's space between us so much as it feels like Pilar is really taking up space around her. And that shows me a level of confidence. To balance that confidence, she does have a smile that is very inviting, very kind, almost looking very easy to talk to. And I also want to call out how great her lighting is. We can see her face. It is front lit. It is very front and center, which I think is fantastic. Here's Shayla. Shayla is a graphic designer, and I think her photo really stands out for a number of reasons. This is a great example of how your photo should reflect who you are and what you do. So as a graphic designer, it shows a lot of fun and personality. One thing I love about this is she is showing off her tattoos, which in some instances can be seen as not professional. However, for her, it's a part of who she is, a part of her personality, and being able to demonstrate that in your headshot photo says so much more about you. Someone is able to learn more about you simply by looking at your photo without even having to read the rest of your LinkedIn profile. Hopefully, a photo like this is engaging enough to make someone want to continue to read. And so I think it's fantastic that some of her personality shines through. It also shows a level of personal style, which I think for a designer is really important. As a designer, there needs to be a level of creativity. And her having a personal style says, I have the creativity and I'm not afraid to be out of the box or do something a little different. Similar to Pilar, she also has a power pose. She has her hands on her hips. It is very open, so I do not feel like there is distance between us or a barrier. So her body language is still very open while also showing that she is taking up space and confident. The smile is fantastic, and also her lighting is great. The background is fantastic too because it also shows that level of just fun, a little bit different, something a bit brighter than your standard white, gray, or basic blue background. Here's Rebecca. So, Rebecca is a freelance copy editor. Her background, I find it interesting, but it's not distracting. And I think there is a very fine balance between having something that's going to be interesting and complement you as the main focus of the photo while not being distracting and taking away with it from it. Her lighting here is also really fantastic. I can see that it's side lit, but I'm also still able to see her face, all of her features, so that is not an issue. Again, great smile, really drawing you in. It really just gives off this openness, kindness, and also her open body language. So arms are down. She seems very engaging, and I think as a freelance copy editor, that means she has to work with a lot of clients, likely a lot of different types of clients and types of people. And so her openness, her engagingness in the photo really says a lot. It would give me confidence to say, okay, she looks like she's someone who could be easy to talk to. So if I need help, if I'm looking for a copy editor, she would be a great person to speak with because I could maybe work really well with her. That openness really says a lot about the type of business and professional relationship that we could have. Here is Paul. Paul is our nonprofit executive director, and I love this photo. He has a very engaging smile and his body language. It almost looks like you're catching him mid laugh. He also has such a fun background. I will say, especially for a guy, having a color that's a little less traditional, something that's really bright and pops, it really says a lot. I feel like I get so much of his personality by just looking at this photo. Also, because it does look like he is mid laugh or even just mid body motion, it gives off an excited energy. What I think is so interesting is as a nonprofit executive director, it's important to remember nonprofits are mission driven. So, this more visceral, emotional excitement, it really aligns with the idea of I'm working towards a mission. It almost says I have passion. So, I want to just continue to call out these things in these photos that these are things that can be communicated without any words. And you do yourself a disservice by not thinking critically about what your photo says about you, because that is what people will see before they read anything else. Angela. Angela is a teacher, and she did such a great job with this photo. The background, let's just start there. It is so relevant. It shows her in the classroom. It is literally her in action at her job. Also, her outfit, I think, definitely is reminiscent of what you would think of a standard teacher. So I love that she really put those elements together to drive home what she does as a profession. I also love the pose, especially as a teacher. You do have to sometimes have tough skin in dealing with kids, but also have a level of confidence and the ability to really command the room. And so her pose here, even in holding what looks like a marker, again, it really drives home that idea or just feeling of a teacher. Overall, I think the image is very engaging, and I think what it really drives home is being on brand. This is 100% the brand of a teacher. Meet Sarah. Sarah's a communications director, and I really love this photo. I think her pose is really unique and engaging. I love that she is seated on a stool. That's pretty different than a lot of photos that you see. So again, it gives it a level of engagement and insight, intrigue that a lot of other photos don't have. Also, she's wearing professional attire that I think matches really well with her industry. She's not in a full suit, but certainly is professional. Natalie is a financial analyst, and I love this photo, especially in the way it aligns with her job. She's wearing professional attire in a suit, which does align with finance as a profession. She has a serious pose, but I think her smile is really disarming and also engaging. I can tell by the photo that she's young, but she also really gives this feeling of, I know what I'm doing and I'm confident. So it's giving off confidence without arrogance. This photo would make me very interested to speak with her as a financial analyst. Now let's talk through some photos that maybe didn't go as well as they could. Meet Jorge. Jorge is an entrepreneur, but there are a few things about his photo that do not sit well with me. I would say the lighting is not fantastic. If you see the left side of his face on our right, his left, it's a little dark. It tells me he's being lit from the side, and that casts a shadow. So I don't get to see his face fully lit. Personally, I am not a huge fan of a black and white photo. I think the color can say so much, as we've seen with some of the other examples. People who have bold backgrounds and colors that really align with what they do in their profession. It also drives home that passion that they have for the work that they do. So I think in the instance where you can communicate more through a photo, why not do that? So don't take away the color, which could say a lot. Because of all these things, I think it gives little context to who he is and what he does. So again, I think he did himself a disservice in not having more of those things in this photo. Elliot's photo is not the best either. Elliot's an accountant, and I definitely noticed at first his body language. Being hunched over like that is not great body language, especially for a professional photo. It makes you look smaller, it takes away some of that confidence, and it's not very helpful. You want to be standing up straight, as we saw before. A lot of people do power poses. All of those are much more appropriate for a professional headshot. Additionally, he seems to have somewhat of a blank facial expression. A lot of people have had smiles that make them seem very engaging, and I feel like this isn't quite a smile so much as maybe even a grimace. So I think that that is something Elliot can also work on. His eyes, in addition to this grimace, it's such a strong and piercing stare, which I think really minimizes a level of approachability. It may not Elliot doesn't come off as particularly easy to talk to from my perspective. And so I think those are some of the areas where he could work on in his photo to be a bit more engaging and have a higher level of approachability. Here's Cyrus, and Cyrus is a recent grad. A few things I noticed in Cyrus's photo is that there's no reference point for his profession or professionalism. So his attire is pretty casual. The background is also generic or just out of context. So in looking at this photo, I don't know what he does. Also, his facial expression says very little about maybe what he's thinking or feeling. Looks like a bit of a smile, but again, that closed mouth smile is not as engaging as maybe a larger smile, showing your teeth and really looking happy. For Cyrus, I'm not going to be too hard. He is a recent college grad. A lot of those folks either just don't have the guidance and knowledge, they don't have access to the resources to get a very professional headshot. It doesn't mean that you can't do that on your own. I will be talking later in the video about how you can get a fantastic LinkedIn photo at home by yourself. So while Cyrus didn't necessarily nail this photo, there are certainly resources for him of how he can create a really fantastic and engaging professional headshot for his LinkedIn profile. And last, let's look at Bailey. Bailey is a business analyst, which great job. However, the photo does not really reflect that. The first thing is she's not facing the camera and you cannot see her face or her eyes. Big no-no. You absolutely want to make sure that people can see your face. So no sunglasses, of course, regular glasses, that is fine, but no sunglasses, no masks, no things like that. Also, there is no reference for professionalism, especially as a business analyst. This doesn't necessarily read that way. So again, I think it is important that you consider what is the work that I do? What does the environment look like that I do it in? So if I work in financial services or business, a large corporation that can be a bit more formal, that should be reflected in your photo. Your LinkedIn photo is typically the first thing that people notice about you, so make it count. Whether you go pro or DIY, remember clarity, confidence, and authenticity always win. Drop a comment below on which examples resonate with you the most. What have you done in your professional headshots that have made you really stand out? And if you found this video helpful, give me a like and subscribe. Share this video with a colleague or a friend so that they can update their LinkedIn headshot too. Want my exact step-by-step checklist for the perfect DIY headshot? Download it in the description. Let me know how it goes, and I'll see you in the next video.